O Infinite Spirit, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, our friend, beloved God, great gurus of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and our beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yoganandaji, saints and sages of all religions, we bow to you again and again. We thank you for this opportunity to meet together in Satsang, sharing your truth, your light, and your love. Flow through us that we might share you with all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let's lead into our meditation with Rise in Freedom. Nothing on earth can rise of my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise of my soul in freedom. Rise of my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise of my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise of my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise of my soul in freedom. Rise of my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Oh, rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Oh, rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise on my soul in freedom.
We have Nayaswamis, Biraj and Lahari with us today. We're so grateful to have them zooming in with us from California. I've known you both for a long time, but perhaps, so I don't miss anything, if you both wouldn't mind briefly introducing yourselves and your Ananda history.
I go back 37 years with Ananda. Did every job known to man at Ananda Village for 15, 16 years that I was there. Then went off to serve in the colonies, Palo Alto, Rhode Island before Jivana, and India, both Delhi and Pune, and Sacramento in between there, and back in Palo Alto most of the last decade, I guess. Put together a farm while I was here in Palo Alto, wrote a couple of books, doing a lot of teaching. But yeah.
So I had a spiritual life when I was young in the church, in Catholic Church, and then I was searching because I had a lot of questions that weren't answered. So I searched here and there and different teachers and different things, and then I found Ananda at Expanding Light, Spiritual Renewal Week. Just knew I wanted to move there. And my way of learning about Ananda after Spiritual Renewal Week, I had a very deep spiritual awakening when I was there in my first class with Swamiji. Then I had to go back, into the world, and I was figuring out what to do. So I read all the books. I was a reader, so I read all of the books that Master had written, all the books that Swami had written, and this was just my time to learn that way. And I just read a lot of books. And then I got to move to Ananda Village, finally. And I was working in Earth Song, which was the cafe. And I kept thinking, I felt so much joy from what I learned from Yogananda, from his vibration, from the little bit of meditation I'd done by then, just all the people, everything. I was feeling so much joy. It was sort of overflowing from me at that point. I was so joyful, and I really wanted to share it. And to my mind, all that joy came from these teachings and these teachers, or teachers and teachings, both together. And so when I was at Earth Song, which was owned by Ananda, I thought, oh, good. There'll be people who'll come in. They'll ask me about the path. I'll tell them how wonderful it is to meditate. They'll learn how to meditate. They'll have a wonderful thing. This is all going to be wonderful for people. I'm going to go down and serve in the world, after being at the village. And so I went down, and days went by. I carry the lunch, I take the plate. I carry the lunch, I take the plate, day like that. And it's okay, we were working together, learning about energy. But I was getting a little discouraged because nobody was interested. I mean, they might say, where do you live? And I'd say, oh, Ananda Village. And then, can you bring me the salad dressing? It was just not going anywhere. Nothing was happening. So one day Swami came in, and I'd been writing him a little bit about, was this the right place for me to live? Should I go to SRF instead? I'm just learning, I'm awakening, I don't know what's right, so please guide me. And he came in, he said, so, how are you doing? And I said, well, Swamiji, nobody's really interested to hear about Master and his teachings. He looked at me, ever encouraging me to be practical in my idealism. He looked at me and he said, well, no, they come here to eat lunch. That was what they were coming for. So and then he said, too bad you couldn't work at Crystal Clarity. And he left, and I thought, wow, I do love all those books. It would be awfully nice to share in something like that. So why couldn't I? He just gave me a little challenge. He didn't say, why don't you, he could have just said, I want to hire you. But he just said, why don't, too bad, you can't. So that was a challenge for me. So I figured I worked on it over a little time, and finally I managed to muster the courage to just quit the job I had, even though I had no savings, no other income, no other way to get any money, a rent to pay. But I said, no, I'm going to trust God. Swamiji said, too bad. He seems to want me to be there. I'm going to make it happen. I went into seclusion, and I started volunteering at Crystal Clarity. It's okay if I don't eat, if they have to kick me out. Well, I was just at that point in life when I was that kind of a renunciate. Anyway, great freedom. So fast forward, I worked at Crystal Clarity with Swamiji for quite a while, and then I never wanted to leave, but things shifted, changed. Different things happened. I had to go out. So then I've been in colonies ever since, and I can see why. Because if you want to share the teachings, sometimes Divine Mother takes you up on it and puts you in a place where, whether you're ready or not, you find yourself, it's natural because people are here asking, they want it. And so you teach meditation, you counsel, you just be an instrument for God as much as, as you all know, being in centers, you work with new people, you work with each other, you just try and help each person take the next step. So the colonies I was in, I went first to Portland, then I went to Palo Alto. Then Biraj and I got together by me going to Rhode Island. He was in Rhode Island, and I went to Rhode Island to join him. We rode that bus as long as we could pay the bills, and then then we had to come back, and we worked in Sacramento. Then Swamiji was in India, and so we went on a vacation a couple of bags. Hi, Swamiji, we just want to visit. Is there anything we can help you do? Well, let's see. I've got a store I've been trying to open, and then it went on, and so 8 years later, we were both back home. So it's been a great adventure. So Ananda is an adventure. So while we've all been sheltering in place, the reason the title came to me, Standing Unshaken Amidst the Crash of Breaking Worlds, I don't know if you're anything like me, but how do we say it? My stuff has been coming up. I mean, any place I have imperfections, weaknesses, you know, it's been magnified somehow as we're under the microscope of a small space with each other all the time and not so much able to have distractions that, you know, we're just used to having. So it's, you know, it's been a lot right here. And one of the things that it's been off and on a lifetime thing. It goes away, I don't notice it, and then it comes back again. And this particular time on our planet and in the world, and with this particular situation with the virus around us all, I've been finding that my fear buttons have been pushed. You know, that sometimes it's just like a low-level anxiety. I just feel a little restless in my heart. And sometimes I'm like, you know, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And this person might die. And I'm just noticing that this tendency to fear has been activated. So I want to learn how to stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. And I can see that this tendency I have is a contractive tendency. It doesn't make me strong and open and able to do anything and soaring in God's light. It makes me want to go in a little cocoon and, you know, the opposite direction. I don't want to face all that stuff. So it's a battle. It's one of the battlefields for me. And I'm sure we each have our own individual battlefields of opportunity. To stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds, I'm going to put it down into just a few things. One is Smriti. I thought of all of us getting together on the screen, which is new for us. We're getting a little more used to it with groups, but still it's a little bit different, a little bit of a challenge. But what I was thinking is the reason we come together anywhere. We're in Palo Alto. We have a congregation that used to, 100 or more during holidays. Every Sunday we would meet lots of times, events. We would all be together in one building. And there was a certain feeling of strength that we all had when we were there together. And we were once doing a membership drive here. You know, you have these brainstorming sessions and anything goes, you just say anything. So it doesn't matter how silly it sounds because something good might come of it. One of the things I said, I love the concept of Smriti, which is just divine remembrance. It's not about you have to become something different or make this huge journey and all that. It's just remember. Okay, just remember. Somehow that seems a simple concept. So I like this concept. So how about for the members, we just say, why do you become a member? Well, you become a member because members help members remember. And, it didn't fly, but it still has a lot to it. When I was thinking of us getting together and I knew Duty was going to sing, I thought, I could just see Duty, and I don't know how much she loved singing today or not. It seemed like it was a good thing. Come gather round, which is just satsang, come gather round. We'll sing the blues away, and so here we are gathered, time and space, in the same place on our screens, but energetically we're connected. So we've gathered around to remember what it is we're doing in this life. What is our path and how are we working it during this time of COVID, sheltering in place? I have some people here who are saying, I've never had better meditations. I'm just having so much time to go deep. And some people are saying, I'm stir crazy. I can't wait, to get out of here. I'm scared, I'm depressed. Lots of things are coming up for people. But the concept of Smriti just to me helps me think, okay, all I have to do is remember. Remember that if I'm not having a good day, somebody else in the community might be. I might see them, or I might turn on a video of somebody doing a satsang or a meditation, and I see they're remembering, and that helps me remember, because it's just about remembering. I mean, I remember when I look at somebody meditating and just having, that look that people get, that we get when oh, there it is, you're just in it. And I may not be in it, but I can look around if somebody else is in it. It helps me remember when I was in it. It helps me go there faster. So, remembrance, divine remembrance. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about courage, because I thought this is something that I know for me and for many others during this time. This time is, it has challenges, which, what did Yogananda say about challenges, right? Didn't let us off the hook at all. There are no challenges, he'd say. There are only opportunities. Opportunities, okay, but we have to see them as opportunities. Otherwise, they just look like challenges, and sometimes they can look almost overwhelming in their weight and breadth and impact, But we can rise above them. We can rise above them when we remember. And so fear, when I first came to Ananda, I wanted to study about fear because I had it in my life already. And I read what Yogananda said about fear. And, just to say, fear be gone, I'm not afraid, it just wasn't working for me. I needed to, it was real. It felt real to me. So I needed to kind of address it in a real way. And when I read Yogananda's early lessons, where he says, this sacred lesson is meant only for the devoted Yogoda student who would untiringly and unceasingly seek God until he finds him. Those super advanced, if you've seen any of those mimeograph copies of those lessons, the Yogoda lessons, we studied them at Ananda before we had so many other resources that we have now. And I remember looking up fear and saying, okay, Yogananda, how do I get over this? What do I do with it? And he gave some very good advice, which I used. I meditated on it, and I really have held these as part of my tools to, chop through fear or push it aside or bulldoze it or whatever it is that, image that comes, but to get over the fear. When fear overpowers you, realize that nothing worse than physical death can happen to you. And if that does happen, it releases you from the object of your fears. Kind of have to laugh at that, the worst that can happen is you die. If you die, you're no longer afraid. Whatever it is you were afraid of is gone. You're no longer looking at it. So in a way, it's, it's kind of cheeky. But then I started getting interested a little bit more. Everybody, that is the fear that everybody has. The undercurrent fear, psychologists all tell us, is the fear of death. And if you can conquer that fear, you've gone a long way to freeing yourself from fear. I was in Kerala doing some healing treatments, and I had a lot of time to do different practices that I wouldn't normally do. And I read Nalini's book on transitioning with grace. She does several stories of devotees and how they died, how their process worked, what things they went through, how they resolved their karmas and their hurts and their relationships and their attachments, and just how they went through that time of letting go of everything, including the body and the life that they knew. Very, very inspiring. I heartily encourage it. While I was reading that book in Kerala, I came upon a chapter on the final exam, which is what Swamiji referred to as prepare yourself for death. Be always preparing yourself for death, because death is a final exam for this life. So just as graduating from school, you want to pass that final exam, you want to graduate. And it's a beautiful way for a devotee to look at letting go of the ego, the renunciation of desires. What are we attached to? What hurts do we nurse? What regrets do we have? So Swami said there are two things that bring us back into this world, life after life after life. I mean, at some point, we're going to be done. We would have done enough and we don't want to come back. And hopefully at some point we won't have to come back, but sooner rather than later, to many of us sounds like a good idea. That's why we do Kriya Yoga, to free ourselves from the compulsion of coming back and being, forced into a life that is less than free and full of smriti. We have to earn that every life. But he said there are only two things that call us back from the astral world, from wherever we go when we leave the body. One is desire. I didn't get enough of this. I really wanted this. Just desire that doesn't leave when you leave your body, and it pulls you back. The other one is regret. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish they hadn't done that to me. You're not free if you're regretting or if you're desiring. You're still caught in the web of Maya. So he recommends different practices. One is to build a fire. We've heard this one, many of us in several of us lectures. At the end of each day, build a fire, a bonfire, and put everything into it. All your desires, all your attachments, all your hopes and fears. Just put everything into the fire, so when you go to sleep, you just feel free. You just feel, I'm a soul, I'm free. As much as possible. It's a good practice. The purification fire we do every night to do that. And there was one practice that I also wanted to share with you from that final exam chapter in Nalini's book. It was the first time I'd heard of it, and so I like new things to practice. I kind of like new things, so it keeps me interested in the game when I have something new to try. And so this was a wonderful practice that I did a long time one day. I had a lot of time between treatments and things I was doing. And then I liked it so much that I did a little bit every day for about a week and a half. So I wanted to share it with you. It's, you imagine, I was imagining, it's the final exam. I'm on my deathbed. I'm getting ready to go. Okay, what's hanging out there? What am I tense about? What am I nervous about? What am I afraid of? What do I regret? What do I desire? And for me, it helped me. This was a thing about people and mostly about relationships, how to be free in all your relationships as you die. And the exercise was that you think of each person in your life who you've loved, you've been close to, so the ones you don't want to let go of, those really special, sweet ones. And you just open your hands, you lay that person on a sea of bliss, and you watch them floating on the sea of bliss. And you watch the bliss coming into them, surrounding them, and you just feel, oh, that person, isn't that wonderful? That person is in bliss, and that's the relationship. Well, you do that, you can see where it goes. You do that with the people you like, okay, and the ones that are kind of a nuisance, and the ones that, boy, they're really giving me a hard time, and the ones that, yeah, they really hurt me, and I don't really like that person, and that person, and you just keep expanding it out one by one as a person comes to mind, floating them on the sea of bliss, just spending a little time with them. Like Colleen had us sort of being in that light and touching places and people with that light. It's this sea of bliss that you're just seeing them just supported in, held in, one with the sea of bliss. So I did that with just about everybody I could think of, people I hadn't thought of for years and years. And Biraj laughed when I told him this, but I said, after I did that for a couple days, sweetheart, I was really feeling blissful. I mean, of course, what we wish for others, what we concentrate on, we can't help but have that, come through us. So that was very freeing. There's a little bit more on courage. And this is another simple tool Yogananda gave. When fear comes, tense and relax. Exhale several times. Switch on the currents of calmness and serenity. Isn't that fun? Switch on the currents of calmness and serenity. It's like just a little switch. It sounds so doable. You know, just, it's in there. Just remember calmness and serenity, okay? I can be calm. I've been calm. I'll just choose to be calm. Shift. Switch on the currents of calmness and serenity. Let your whole mental machinery awaken and actively hum with the vibration of will to do something. That was so meaningful to me. When I am in, the clutches, it is like that, the clutches of fear, I don't really want to do anything. I mean, it's hard for me to do things. So I have to, so one of the ways to get out of the fear is to do something, just to decide, I will do something. I will take a walk, I will wash the dishes, I will. It gets the will engaged. I will. It's like that. We say that in all of our vows at Ananda. I love that. Even, the Kriya vow, the discipleship vow, I do, I will. We really, Yogananda taught us that our willpower is so important on the path and that it can take us far. I will reason, I will act. And guide thou my reason, will, and activity, of course, but not just waiting for God to do it. We start, we will, and then we tune in. Uproot fear from within by forceful concentration on courage and by shifting your consciousness to the absolute peace within. Yogananda, he's so fun with the words. Sometimes he goes on with about 25 adjectives, and he keeps me engaged for every single one that he uses. I always love to read Yogananda's original stuff. And Swamiji said, most people, they don't want to read all those adjectives. We got to really, he took the way of Four Master editing things to be a little clearer, which is a great benefit for all of us. But sometimes Yogananda is so succinct in this one. Kill fear by refusing to be afraid of it. Know that you are safe behind the battlements of God's eternal safety. Even though death knocks at your door or you are rocked on the seas of suffering, His protecting rays can dispel the menacing clouds of doomsday, calm the waves of trials, and keep you safe. Whether you are in a castle or on the open battlefield of life, where bullets of trials are incessantly flying, remember, without God's protection, your life, health, and prosperity are in dire peril, even though you are locked in a scientifically hygienic castle of opulence, surrounded by impregnable moats, manned by all the fire-emitting guns of man. Remember, without God's protection, your life, health, and prosperity are in dire peril, even when we're sheltering in place. So what we want is God's protection, don't we? To finish up on fear, the antidote to fear, actually there are sort of two ways to look at fear. One is that perfect love dispels all fear. When we have perfect love in our hearts, they're full. They're content because the content is love. It's filled up. If we have full love in our hearts, pure heart is an instrument for God to pour the best He has, and the best He has is divine love. The best we have to give Him is our love. So working with the heart and working with love and devotion are very important ways. Love, perfect love drives all fear away, so always working on love. I looked up the word courage when I was studying about the heart, and the word comes from the French word, which means heart, the center, courage. So again, it comes back to the heart, letting go of fear, letting go of attachments, letting go of hurts and resentments and all of those things, regrets. So I'm going to now go to Affirmations for Self-Healing from Swamiji on courage. There are 3 kinds of human courage: blind, passive, and dynamic. Blind courage doesn't count the cost until it finds itself faced, horror-stricken, with the bill. Passive courage is the strength of will to adjust to reality, whatever it may be. Passive courage, we adjust, and that can be the best we can do sometimes. We just have to adjust. It's happening. But there's another part here. He lists the 3, human courage, 3 parts of human courage, and the third one, which seems to be the best one, tell me if you think so. Dynamic courage is the strength of will not only to accept reality, but to confront it with another reality of one's own making. So that's on the path. We always talk about superconscious solutions, right? Something's wrong, something is off, something needs fixing, something needs solving, something needs making or creating. How do we find that inspiration to do it, to address it, to solve it, to superconsciousness? And that, of course, resides here. So if we have the strength of will to confront it with another reality, we're also exercising creative discipleship, which is one part of the path that Swami Kriyananda exemplified in his discipleship. If you can find a way to be creative in your service, creative, it keeps it more alive and dynamic for us to be doing things, and it adds to the joy in the world and helping people learn about Master, in the appropriate ways when the people are open and all of that. But now we'll go on to the fourth and last stage of the soul's long journey. The fourth and last kind of courage, which is not human but divine. Divine courage comes from living in the awareness of God's presence within, and in the realization that He is the sole reality. Live more in Him, for nothing and no one can touch what you really are. I'm going to read that one again. We can really absorb that. It can serve our hearts greatly. Divine courage comes from living in the awareness of God's presence within, and in the realization that He is the sole reality. Live more in Him, for nothing and no one can touch what you really are. The Gita, when Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and Arjuna is asking all the questions a devotee would want to ask, a serious, dedicated devotee. And Krishna says, well, don't worry about death, about the death of yourself or others. The spirit never dies. The soul never dies. Light, and the one thing we haven't yet done is the affirmation. So we can end with the affirmation. This is from Swami on courage. I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. I live in God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. And the very last ending is the prayer. I look to Thee for my strength, Lord. Hold me closely in Thy arms of love. Then, whatever happens in my life, I shall accept with joy. I look to Thee, Lord, for my strength. Hold me closely in Thy arms of love. Then, whatever happens in my life, I shall accept with joy. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you,
Background.
friends.
I'm not sure how good I am at explaining it. It's basically just a collection of the journal pages that I've kept ever since the very first week I set foot on Ananda village land in 1984. I asked a very simple question. You started asking years ago, Divine Mother, what do you want me to learn today? And sometimes she would give me answers, and I just have collected those. Every time she gave me an answer, for some reason I got in the habit of saying, well, one page is enough. And so when I got to the bottom of the page, I just stopped writing. And so I've got a lot of these one-page conversations between me and Divine Mother. And that's what I just put between the two covers of the book. And some people may just go, that's wild and that's weird. And some people may say, who do you think you are? And I as Asha wrote in the foreword to it, she said, Biraj doesn't claim to have any special powers. He just kind of took these pages out of his journal and shares, and I share them with you. See if they ring true for you. That's really all it is. The other part of it, which is also very fun, is in order to have these journal entries have a context, the research that I did to add to the book was all the things I could find, all the most powerful and sweetest comments that Swami and Master and Frank Laubach and Brother Lawrence and all kinds of people like that have said over the years about intuition and really tuning in and listening inside for inner guidance. I collected all those things that I could find, and so about every other page has one of those wise guys talking about how can you and me, how can we all listen and gain more intuition and inner guidance through the techniques of our path. So those are the two elements in the book, and it was a lot of fun to put together.
Asha said in the foreword, this is a book to be savored, not gulped. And I agree with that. And, each page is a topic, and they really pack a punch. And I feel like this is a great book to have on your nightstand, to maybe just read a passage and ponder it before you go to bed.